Hi, my name is Jason Dunstone, Managing Director and Founder of Square Holes, Adelaide, South Australia-based market research agency. You're about to see top 10 trends of Square Holes, some of the observation and trends we expect to impact marketers and advertisers over the next 12 months. It's also going to be an opportunity for you to meet some of Square Holes' key staff and I guess their outtakes of what the trends actually mean. For me, the trends illustrate a key part of Square Holes. So we obviously do work on a customised basis with government and corporate clients, consumer brands, etc. Many sort of key brands across Australia. The important thing that I guess part of the ethos of Square Holes is it's not about a project by project basis, it's about observing trends across different projects, not in impacting and abusing any client confidentiality, but observing trends that we're coming back with. What you'll see is some interesting findings coming through, or we hope you find some interesting findings that you can take and bring into your own marketing and advertising and strategy moving forward. Obviously digital is an impact, the environment, changes in consumer behaviour. I hope you enjoy the top 10 trends.
But one of the really massive trends in serendipity over the last few years has been pop-up retail, pop-up advertising, pop-up stores. And Arcade Lane down the road in Adelaide Fringe Festival is going to have a pop-up cultural event. So they'll have pop-up sneaker markets, they'll have pop-up DJ, they'll have pop-up sort of restaurants, that sort of thing. And it's all appears one day or appears over 1 week or 1 month and disappears again. So it's quite serendipitous, it's quite random. And I think consumers are increasingly looking for that randomness in their lives and that element of surprise. So.
I think that's really about the continued fragmentation of media consumption. The fact that there are more and more channels now, and that our habits of the media which we're consuming is starting to change. I think, for instance, you look at the last couple of years of the Nielsen surveys of the media consumption in Australia, where you see that TV, radio, and traditional media has generally gone down over the last few years, and you're seeing that the growth of channels such as online and also online radio, people are just spending more time on their computers and also doing things like time shifting as well. So what you're seeing is that consumer behaviour is changing and has totally changed over the last few years. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge for marketers nowadays, to actually understand that it's changed and that the old model, while it's still relevant, is becoming increasingly less so. And that's because how we do things is totally different than what it was before. We're spending less and less time watching TV or just listening to the radio.
Unfettered authenticity is perhaps another macro trend that we've seen sort of emerging over the last couple of years, and certainly as you go into the supermarkets there's more and more powerful evidence for this. And I spoke about kind of everything, we're living in a very polished, saccharine culture these days where everything comes off a manufacturing line. And I think that culture really is driving this trend for unfettered authenticity as well. And I think one of the ways that unfettered authenticity is coded in supermarkets and in, for example, the FMCG market is a naturalness.
The importance is really to make sure that your product, your service and your message is relevant. And to be relevant you need to find something that emotionally connects to the people you're trying to target. And this is seen in lots of sort of charities and that lately. They're taking out ads such as the Red Cross one. They pull on your heartstrings. So it's something that emotionally you can think, oh, what if that was my grandfather, or and things like that. They're pulling in common everyday things that everyone can relate to in some way, and that pulls your heartstrings and you think, oh, I should do that. And so I think services that are doing it well are charities, and there's more social messages, but a way for consumer products and services to get in is to take their lead.
What we've been seeing time and time again in our studies is that while people are struggling and they are cutting back on some things and making some sacrifices, they're still holding on to things that they love and things that they enjoy indulging in. So whether that is like a daily coffee, like just going down to like Chivo, or even buying an instant coffee, they'll see that as an indulgent item, or even just getting like a weekly chocolate like Cadbury, like that'll be their indulgence. And even like holding on to sort of more expensive things, so like a season ticket for football or theatre.
Yeah.
I think what we are seeing is we're not seeing a holistic approach and a holistic adoption of eco or green or sustainability practices. And we've seen going into people's homes, for example, that people adopt haphazardly and are fairly arbitrarily their green or sustainable practices. So one household will compost, another household will have a shower for 3 minutes. We've got rainwater tanks in another household. But I don't think, unless on the kind of the far fringe or the far periphery, you don't have households really adopting a very holistic approach and throwing themselves wholeheartedly into it.
Now, more and more people are less reliant on mainstream sources to actually find out news. Instead, they're relying on their own networks to actually find out things. So they're relying on services like Facebook or Twitter to let them know what's happening out there in the world. And a lot of that, there was a study recently done by Compete.com, which actually just tracked the visits to mainstream media websites. And what they found was that a large percentage of those, about 44% of the traffic to mainstream media websites actually came through Facebook, which shows how powerful that is as a medium for people to actually share news and get that message out there. So when you look at something like Michael Jackson's death, for instance, that story broke first on TMZ, and then from there it went out onto Twitter. Twitter actually shut down for a long period of time because they had that much traffic about Michael Jackson, because people just sharing that out there, as well as also Facebook, people sending out to their friends, putting in their Facebook status updates, etc.
The younger generation, what's dubbed as reckless spenders, are becoming more price conscious and are moderating their spending habits. So we've noticed this in a study that we conducted, quite extensive study last year, and it showed that the younger generation aren't quite as superficial as they once believed, but rather the opposite. So they're willing to work harder rather than asking for everything now. I think this has two main implications coming out of this trend. One is the understanding that this market are price savvy, and the second one is understanding that they are ambitious, and especially in terms of their careers and you're buying a home.
So this is a sort of term we've come up with for just sort of individuals and consumers in general who you know you should do something and you should listen to these messages, and it's all the should categories. So, we should do this and we should do that. And it's the fact that when you ask consumers, say, do you think things are important, such as eating healthy or the environment, they'll always agree, oh yes, this is an important issue. However, when it comes to actual change, it's a lot harder to get. So the key here is to not only get consumers taking away the message and knowing on a superficial level that these things are really important and they should make a change and it should be something that makes a difference in their lives. It's ensuring that following on from the awareness of this message, that their behaviour change.
So I guess you've probably noticed a bit of a recurring theme with some of the top digital trends, but I think, and that's social media. Social media seems to be the thing that's really driving a lot of these changes in consumer behaviour. I think one of the things which really stuck with me was that when social media first came out, when platforms like MySpace and Facebook were in the infancy, or they really still are a few years ago, there was all this talk that it's going to make people less and less social. But I think that's the reverse has actually happened, where people are actually more social than they've ever been. And that's really as far as we're sharing more things than ever before, and with more and more people. We're not just sharing amongst our physical friends, we're sharing with our digital friends, friends who we haven't seen in years, relatives on the other side of the world. We're sharing more and more and more. The implication this has on marketers is to then understand what that buzz is and how to actually, A, how to generate it, and B, how to manage it.